Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm going to talk about valve breathing, and I'm going to give you a lot of information first about valve breathing, and then I will go through a lot of different visualization exercises to actually practice the different breathing. But right now, I'm going to share a screen with you just to give you some information before we get going. Hold on a second. Now, of course, it's not doing it. Cool. There we go. I'm going to show you a picture of the 5 diaphragms, and there are actually 7, but this just shows 5 of them. And when we're talking about valve breathing, rather than just talking about respiration, which is what your lungs do, valve breathing includes all the different diaphragms in the body. You'll see that there are 2 in the head that pump the cranial sacral fluid up and down. There's one in the throat at the neck called the omohyoid valve, and then there's your diaphragm muscle, and those regulate all the systems that happen in the thoracic cavity, so respiratory system, circulatory system. And then you have the diaphragm, and you then have the pelvic diaphragm, and that regulates everything that happens in the abdominal cavity. So it regulates waste production, it regulates reproduction, it regulates metabolism and digestion. And this doesn't show 2 of the valves that are in your foot. And I'm going to show you a picture of the foot so you can kind of see all the soft tissue that's here is one of the valve systems. And you'll notice that it's shaped like a diaphragm. Diaphragms have a dome, and you'll notice that that soft tissue has that same shape, and it's a pumping mechanism as well. 6 and 7 are, there's a valve in the right foot and there's a valve in the left foot. Normally, when we talk about, again, valve breathing, it's the whole system in your body creating a pumping mechanism. And so lymph system, again, all hormones get pumped by it. All the fluid that goes to your fascia gets pumped by the valves. And so it's a much broader system, again, than just respiration. I'm going to play this video for you because this kind of shows how the body moves in valve breathing, and it moves in a transverse plane motion. And so all the structures in the body move this direction and this direction, and the arms start to spiral in the tube and the legs start to spiral in the tube. And this video just kind of shows how the whole body is moving, and you can see how everything turns in, and that happens on the exhalation, and then you'll see that everything starts to turn out. And that happens on the inhalation, and you can just kind of watch that video and you see how it changes the entire body. Again, the cranial sacral fluid is pumped, the hormone fluid is pumped, the waste production is pumped, your lymphatic system is pumped, your venous return is pumped, all by this mechanism of all the valves pumping together as a whole. You'll notice when the arms turn out, the breastbone rises up and it kind of shifts forward. And then when the arms turn in, I'm going to play it again for you, just so you can see it again. When the arms rotate in, the breastbone sinks into the body, everything wraps around the front, and the knees and the toes point more up. And then as everything opens out, you'll see that the toes spiral out, the knees spiral out, the breastbone comes forward. And so the whole body is doing this pumping mechanism with every breath, and it correlates to your respiratory breath. A lot of times we put a lot of focus on the respiratory breath, and we don't put as much emphasis on all the other different breaths that happen, like how the valve system works and the pelvic valve, the reproductive breath, the digestion breath, the venous return breath, the cranial sacral breath. I'm going to show you just a still picture, and it shows how the inhalation phase, the body is really opening and the breastbone is moving forward, and the knees and the toes are turning more outward, and the pelvis turns more outward. And you can see that on the exhalation phase, everything moves towards the midline. And so everything turns towards the midline, and the midline, the center line of the body, starts to sink back. Again, respiration is kind of the most common breath that everybody talks about. And I'm going to show you just a picture of what we're gonna work on, and we're gonna start with the thoracic cavity, and we're gonna do a visualization exercise that is, I call it string theory for lack of a better word. But if you look at the picture of the person, if you were to imagine a string going from your first rib and going down through your rib cage and then pulling out to the side, we're gonna do some of this visualization exercise. You can lie down, you can sit up, however you want to feel the most comfortable. You can have your legs straight or knees bent if you're lying down. If you feel comfortable lying on your stomach, you can try that. But find a place that you're comfortable, and we're gonna try some of this visualization of the thoracic cage. And then I'm gonna talk a little bit about how it actually causes the respiratory valve function to work after you experience a little bit. I'm just gonna sit because for me, that's really comfortable. And we're gonna start on our right side. The right side of the lung has 3 different lobes. The left side only has 2. So we're gonna start with the side that has more of the respiratory capacity. If you find your first rib, and if you think about where your collarbone intersects your breastbone, your first rib attaches right under that, and you can kind of follow it to the side, and then you could follow it right above the collarbone. And if you were to imagine a string that were tied right above the collarbone to that part of the rib, if you were to visualize the string dropping straight down through that right side of your rib cage, and then if it kind of acted like a J, like the picture shows, if it could go down all the way below your ribs, and then it could pull out to the side, turn my camera down a little bit. If you just start to think about pulling the string, and you just visualize the path that the string is taking. So I'm gonna visualize the path of pulling the string down through my ribs and then out to the side, and then I'm just gonna let that go. And if you do that several times, you can go at your own pace, just visualizing the string. Notice as you're going through that process, it could be that there are places as you go down through the chest cavity that it's harder to get the string to move through. It could be hard for you to find a path for the string to go. It may feel like it's hard for it to be pulled out to the side. But if you just start to give it a whirl, and if you start on the right side, I'm gonna do it several times in a row. The more clearly your brain can see the path, the better. Start to notice if the path becomes more smooth, or maybe the path changes. It might feel like the path is really close to your spine, more to the back of the rib cage. It might feel like the string wants to go right down the front of the rib cage. It might feel like the string crosses over the midline and doesn't stay on the right side. If you start to feel the path is smoothing out inside your rib cage, see how far to the side of the body you can get the string to go. Can it touch the side wall in your mind's eye?
Alicia, sorry to jump in, but are we imagining the string starting at the top rib and then internally pulling down through the ribs and out the side?
Yes, I can't hear you very well.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know if I can make it any better, but hopefully you can hear that.
That's better.
Okay, I just wanted to find out, are we imagining the string starting up at the top rib and coming through the side of the spine, down through the ribs and out the side?
Yes, if you imagine again, the string were tied to that first rib and it were to drop inside of your chest cavity, so it would go inside of your rib cage. For some people, the string may actually go over to the left. For some people, it may follow this part of the ribs. For some people, it may follow the spine. For some people, it may follow the breastbone. but just see where it goes when you imagine pulling the string through your rib cage and then down and out to the side. Where does it go for you? And for everybody, it may be slightly different. And it may feel like it gets stuck as well. So it may feel like it doesn't want to go through some of the tissue that's in your chest cavity.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so I'm just confused as to the inhale and exhale. So
don't even worry about the inhale and the exhale. Just see if you can get the string to pull.
But which way? Okay, so for me,
down. So always start at the top at the first rib and pull it down through your ribs and out to the side, and just see what that creates in your chest cavity. And it may create an inhale for you. It may create an exhale.
okay, thank you.
If you do start to get the string to run smoothly and fluidly, notice what happens when you let the string go. It could feel like it bounces back into your body and kind of recoils up. It may feel like it stays out to the side and just hangs there. It may feel like it starts to circle back up towards the top so that it continues a whole circular path. And just notice for you what's happening. Notice as you're doing it more, does it get quicker? And so it feels like it's a faster process for you to get the string to go down through the chest cavity and out to the side. And again, does it change when you release the string? Do you have a sense of the string again recoiling back into the body? Does it want to reverse and go up the outside of the body so it starts to make a continuous circle? Does it feel like once you release the string, it just kind of hangs out to the outside of your body? If you have a sense of kind of a continuum, that it's been easy for you to get the string moving, that it's flowing, if you put your hand on the side of your rib cage, closer to your armpit, and you can do the back of your hand, for me that's easier, or you can do the palm. Just notice as you do the string movement, notice if you sense any change in your rib cage. And if it's hard to label the change that's occurring in your rib cage, if you notice your hand and its distance to your armpit, does it ever get closer to your armpit and then further away? if you take a moment and notice the opposite side, and if you just put your hands on the two sides, and notice if you just pause and kind of sense your breath, notice if you sense any difference between the two sides. Notice if one hand moves up and down vertically, closer to your armpit, further away more than the other. Do you have a sense of pumping on one side of your body more so than the other? If you are sitting, notice if you have a different awareness of the tissue that's on the ground on the right versus the left. If you're lying down, notice the surface contact of your back body. And notice if the tissue is different from one side to the other. Notice the fullness in your throat on one side versus the other. And if you can notice your vision, notice if there's a difference in your vision on one side versus the other. If you're looking straight ahead, is there a difference in your side vision? If you relax, I'm going to show you a picture of the lungs, and then we're going to do some more of the visualization exercises, but this is a chest x-ray. And if you notice where the collarbones are, and if you notice where the lungs are, you'll see that the lungs, the top of the lung is up in the neck cavity, and it's higher than the collarbones. And a lot of times in our sympathetic state, the lungs get pulled down, and so they're lower in the chest cavity versus up, the top of them being in the neck area. And so what happens is the valve breathing starts to slow down because the lungs get pulled really low, and the recoil mechanism and the functional mechanism of the diaphragm slows down. And you'll notice as you start to do the valve breathing, the lungs will start to move up. So they'll look more like this chest x-ray, where the top of the lung is above the collarbone, kind of sitting up by the thyroid. I'm going to show you a different picture of the lungs that kind of explains them a little bit. And everybody knows that there are different lobes in the lungs. And on the left, there are 2. On the right, there are 3. And you can see the thick line right here that's more black is just a designation of the different lobe. Over on the left lung, it's just that low part of the green that's the second lobe. But you'll notice that the lung lobes run horizontally. So they run in this direction. And if you look at all of the little attachments, the trachea and the bronchial tree, and how it goes into the lung, it's also more of a horizontal running this direction. If you think about the lungs as we typically think about them in respiration as getting longer and getting shorter, if you think about, because the bronchial trees are going sideways, if there's a lengthening and a shortening, there's going to be a closing and an opening of the bronchial tree. But if you look at the lungs also, if they lengthen and shorten, it would be hard to let the middle lobe on the right side, it would be hard to determine how they can lengthen and shorten equally. And so the lungs are designed horizontally. So with all of those horizontal pieces, on the inhale, the inside edge of the lung goes down and the outside edge tips up. And so it follows the path of the bronchial tree. And on the exhale, it reverses itself and it does this. And in a parasympathetic state where the valve system is breathing, it does this movement inside of the chest cavity. It's like the wings of a butterfly versus this motion. And again, so as you're doing the valve breathing, you're going to start to notice more of this motion, which causes you to feel, if your hand is here and you're valve breathing, you'll start to notice that your hand gets closer to your armpit and further away. As the lungs flip up, the ribs go up with it. As the lungs go down, the ribs on the outside of the body go with it. I'm going to show you just another picture of the rib cage looking top down. And so we're going to go more in depth in the string visualization for both sides. But I'm going to show you this picture just so you know precisely. If you were going to tie the string around this guy and just drop it straight through and then it would go out to the side, that will give you kind of a better idea of where the string is going. It's going straight down through the rib cage and then pulling out to the side. I'm going to invite you again. I think it's better to lay down, but you can stay sitting if you want to. I'm going to stay sitting just so I can see you. But if you want to lay down, I would encourage that. And if you lie down, preferably knees bent, feet flat. But if it's much more comfortable for you to lie down with your legs extended, you can try that. Once you're lying down, just take a moment and get a sense of how your rib cage is resting on the ground. If you notice where your rib 12 is, the bottom of the floating rib, notice if that's touching or has any surface contact on the ground. And then if you follow your ribs up to rib 1, notice if there's any contact on the ground. It may be different on the right side and the left, just because we did a little bit of the valve breathing visualization on the right already. And so you might be able to pick up on the differences between the two sides just from the get-go, from the start. If you reorient yourself to where the string would be now that you're lying down, again, just reorient yourself to where the string would attach to your rib on the right. And now it's going to run not with gravity, but kind of oppositional to gravity through your body and then out to the side wall. And just revisit the string visualization on the right side. And notice now that you're laying down, does the string want to go in a different way? Does gravity pull it all the way to the back of your body? Maybe it has a harder time getting through your rib cage than it did when you were sitting, if you were sitting originally. But if you start to do the visualization, imagining pulling the string starting at the top, pulling it down the path inside of your rib cage and exiting out the side of your body towards the side wall. Again, notice if the path is really clear. Is there any congestion anywhere? Once you're used to the path seems smooth. Again, start to notice when you let go of this string, do you notice a pattern? Does it want to pull immediately back into your body? Does it fall to the floor, to the side of you? Does it continue a circular path and go back up to the starting point? Notice if you keep visualizing the string. If you'd like, if you start to think about it more expansive, and you could think about it as kind of a hot liquid flowing through or a lava type mixture flowing through your body. And it can spread out into your entire chest cavity and follow the path down through your ribs and then flow out to the side of your body. And again, notice if it ever starts to make its way on the outside of your body when you release it. Does it ever seem like it starts to make its way in a full circle back up to the starting point going on the outside of the body? If you do that visualization a few more times on the right, and again, let your mind be aware of how your body is connecting to the ground on the right side versus the left. You might notice a change in how your pelvis connects to the ground. You might even notice a change in the soles of your foot. One foot may feel like it has more of a soft tissue pressure that's spread out through the entire foot, whereas one foot might feel like the bony points have a lot more contact and there's fewer places of contact. You might even notice that the back of your skull rests differently on the ground. If you pause the visualization and just notice if you have any sense of liveliness in your body, and if you compare the two sides, notice how one side of your body relates to the environment of the room and how the other side of the body relates to the environment of the room. Notice your sensory awareness on one side versus the other. You might notice if there's a different temperature in the two sides of your body or a different neural response. As the valve breathing is more active, you might notice more tingling in your hands and your feet or a temperature change. Notice if you have any awareness of openness from one side of your body to the other. If you think about the external body as this tube, it's a shell to hold all the really important internal matter, the organs, the blood vessels, the nerves. Notice if the tube of your body on the right, that external shell, has a different space than the tube of the body on the left. If you start to now bring your awareness to the left side, again, if you visualize the string tying to that first rib and dropping down through the center of the rib cage on the left side somewhere, again, it may be closer to the spine at first, it may be closer to the outside of your body, but making its way all the way through the rib cage, out the bottom of the rib cage to the side wall of the room. And just start to notice if you can visualize pulling the string along that pathway. And again, you might notice that there are places where the string has a stickier time going through, maybe places that feel thicker than others. Notice how far your brain wants to pull the string to the side of you. Does it take it all the way to the side wall? Does it kind of just barely get to the outside of your body? Does the left side seem to have a different nature than the right? Notice as the string gets pulled out to the side and then the release of the string happens. In your mind's eye, where does the string go? Does it fall to the floor beside you? Does it recoil and come back into your body? Does it continue a full circular path all the way to the starting point and it just revisits the path? So it becomes more of a continuum. Is the left side more clear to your mind's eye than the right? Maybe it exits the side of your body in a different location. So maybe it exits the side of your body more to the back of your body or more to the front versus directly out the side. Notice if any of the rest of your body on the left is changing. Do you observe changes in the sole of your foot? Do you observe changes in how your back body wants to rest on the ground? You might start to notice that holding patterns in your body change. If you just pause for a moment and just kind of notice your breath and just see if it's really quiet. Is your respiration standing by itself, so you really observe the breath, or has your respiration become part of a bigger system? So it's quieter, more internal, less observable. If you feel comfortable, you can stick with one side or the other and do it singularly, or if you feel comfortable trying both sides together, visualizing the string on the left and the right going down through and then out to the side and then releasing. Sometimes one is enough, but if you want to give the two a try, maybe doing the two sides at the same time causes the visualization of the pathway of the spring to be more smooth. Maybe it reveals different sticky places. Do you notice when you release the strings on both sides at the same time? Do the strings follow the same path after they've been released? Notice if visualizing both strings together changes the pace. Does it slow down? Does it speed up? If you feel comfortable with the pattern and you'd like to see how it relates to movement, if you hold both arms up above your chest out in front of you, and as you start to pull the string down through your ribs and out, let your arms open. And as you release the string, let your arms come back in front of you. And see if your arms can match the pace of the string, which may mean they go faster on the way up or faster on the way out, or slower one direction or the other. Notice if anything about the range of motion of your arms start to change. Does adding the movement of your arms make the string movement, the path of the string, less clear or more clear? Again, maybe one side is different than the other. If you'd like to try a different movement, if you let your arms come down to follow the string and then out and then up and in, that makes a full circle. As the string goes down and out, your arms can go down and out. And then as you release the string, let your arms float up and back together. And then if you just let your arms relax again and go back to visualizing the strings, notice if it's any different in your mind's eye. Maybe it's more active, it has a faster pace, or maybe it's slower. If you try a leg movement as you visualize it, if you're lying down, if you have your knees bent and feet flat, if you let your knees open out to the outside as the string pulls down and out, and then let the knees come back up as the string releases. Notice by adding the movement of the legs, if something changes about the pathway of the string. Does it make it through the rib cage the same way and out to the sidewall the same? Maybe it goes further away from your body than it did before. Notice if your legs match the pulling of the string, or if the legs want to go ahead of it, and then your brain starts to force the pulling of the string to match the leg movement. If you then again let your legs relax and just notice again what your awareness is of your breath. Is the respiratory breath really standing alone so it's super obvious to you? Or has the respiratory breath started to blend in with the rest of the body and become more of the whole system, and so it becomes very quiet? We're going to move to the third valve, which is the omohyoid valve up in the jaw. And so the string visualization starts at the same place, but it just goes the opposite direction. And if you start on the right side, if you visualize a string tied to the first rib, and then it goes up through your neck, right past your trachea, and it goes through your oral floor, into your jaw, and it goes into the mouth cavity, and then it pulls out the side of the soft part of your cheek. So from that first rib again, it goes up on the inside of the tube of your neck, right beside your trachea, and then it goes up into the oral floor, and then it goes into the mouth cavity by your tongue, and then it pulls out to the side, coming through the soft hollow part of your cheek. See if you can start to visualize that path going again through the neck and up, and through the oral cavity out to the side. So it's just the opposite direction from that first rib. Notice as it goes up through your neck if there's any place that it gets stuck. And again, if it's hard to visualize a string, if you visualize fluid, that's fine too, or light or heat. Notice if the string can go easily up into the oral cavity and then out through that soft part of the cheek above the bottom jaw. Does the neck have too much tension for the string to pass through it, in between the skin and the trachea? Once the string is pulled out to the side of your body and you release it, do you notice which way it goes? Does it recoil back into your system? Does it stay in the same position? Does it circle back down to the starting point? Do you notice any changes in your tongue position? Or the tension around your throat? Maybe the path of this string is just much clearer to you than the path of the string inside of the rib cage. Do you notice any changes in the soft tissue on the muscles of the back of your neck? Or the arc of your cervical spine, if you compare the two sides? If this is feeling very smooth to you, could you connect the thoracic string with the neck string? So that as the neck string pulls up, the thoracic string pulls down and they pull out and then release. Notice if you have any different awareness of the ball of your foot on the right foot versus the left, and the soft tissue on the inside edge of your foot. Notice the side of your tongue, and is there anything different about the widest aspect of your tongue on the right versus the left? Notice just the awareness of the side of your neck on the right and the left. Is it different? If you then release that side, and if you move to the left side, if you think about the string tying to that first rib, going up through your neck cavity, right next to your trachea, up through the oral floor, the base of this jaw, and then out from the oral cavity out to the side of the body. Start to notice just that left neck valve string. Notice if the left side is more clear than the right. Maybe there are areas where it's more sticky in the left. As you pull it out to the side of your body, when you release the string, where does it go? Does it recoil back into your body? Does it fall? Does it return to its starting position? If it starts to seem fluid on this left side, you can always add the thoracic string as well, going down from the ribs, down through the ribs and out. If you were to try visualizing all 4 strings going at the same time, you can give that a try. You might notice that as you add the 2 sides together, there might be one of the valves, one of the strings that seems more slow to respond than the others. If you pause and just observe your body without doing the visualization, you notice the widest part of your tongue. Notice if there's any movement that's occurring that's rhythmic, pulsating. If there's movement there, you might notice that it creates some eye movement as well. some blinking movement. Or you might notice that your belly button is moving. So the body is very lively. But if you start to notice just the respiratory quality of breath, you'll probably notice that it's less observable because it's become part of a larger system. We just covered valves 3 and 4. And again, there are 7 different valves, and there's a string visualization for all of the different valves. And if you're interested in the other valves, I can share that with you. Like, I can send you information about that. If you have any questions about anything, you can always feel free to ask. I'm not sure how to go about it, if people type their questions and then ask, or if people just ask. Anybody at the Breath Collective who can help me with that?
I just unmuted myself. I have a question. I know that's no surprise to you.
No.
So in the rib movement, does it sometimes feel a little bit like the upper part of the rib basket is countering so that it becomes wave-like? So it's not all the ribs do this, all the ribs do this, but there's a little bit of a delay or cascade?
The ribs start to, instead of widening and narrowing, they, if I think about a fish's gill, the outer rib tilts up on the inhale and the inner rib tilts down, and then it reverses on the exhale. And so the rib is tipping like a gill versus like expanding and contracting. And that's just one thing that it's doing. And so it's tipping like a gill at the same time as the ribs sit at this angle. They're lower in the front and they're higher in the back. And so it's rotating and tipping all at the same time. So it's doing this rotation where the front ribs go away from the costal cartilage, the back ribs go in, and that creates the tip, and then it reverses it. And so it's this way, and then this way, and then this way, and then this way.
I hear you. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So all the outer ribs will do that, but my perception of the upper ribs sometimes going in and the outer ribs sometimes going out could just be I was orienting more, or I meant lower, to the outer and inner versus the lower and upper. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yep, totally makes sense to me.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, Elizabeth. Any other questions for me? Wow, you're a silent bunch.
Hello, Alicia.
Yes.
So what I was basically seeing is intersecting circles when we did, all 4 of them.
Yes.
Yeah, 1 circle, 2 circles for the top and 2 for the bottom, and they're intersecting. And they're intersecting at the point of the ribs, upper ribs, the top rib.
Exactly.
Okay. And I would love to, get the other valves as well.
Okay, I can do that.
So, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, go ahead, Eliza.
I would love to do the other valves too. Actually, this is just partly from listening to Kimberly's podcast as well about valve breathing. So, like, it's sort of activating the body in quite a big way. Is this not a good thing to be practicing in the middle of the night if you're awake?
It can actually, because it's interesting, because my brain, unconscious brain, knows when I need to rest, and it knows when I need to be awake and move me. And so it will activate your body, but your body's supposed to be active when you're sleeping too. Our valve system is supposed to be still going, and it actually has to be somewhat more active because now gravity isn't assisting it in any way. When we're up and running, right, gravity is assisting movement of fluid, and it's assisting movement of the fascial fluid, the hormone fluid, the metabolic fluid, the kidney fluid. When we're laying flat on the ground, gravity is trying to stop all of it. So when we're sleeping and when we're lying down, the tendency is for our valve system to just really slow down because now it actually has to work harder against gravity. Whereas when I'm sitting up, there's some support for gravitational movement of the valve system and movement of the fluid, so it doesn't have to work as hard. And so it doesn't really affect, like it won't affect, keep you awake if you do it before you go to bed. For some people, it actually knocks them right out, so.
Okay, good.
I was wondering whether the path that we visualized with the strings is an actual physical path of some particular or fluids, or like the way that some physical things actually move.
It is not an actual physical path, but so if you're familiar with the anatomy trains, the fascia anatomy trains, there's a deep front line and then there's the lateral fascia train. And the deep front line holds all the valves in it. And the deep front line shifts down and then the lateral line goes up. So they always move in opposition. And so the path as you go down and out, it's just the path of movement, energy. That line just allows both sides to do what they need to do. And again, it's just me experimenting, right? Trying to find a path that activates both different channels of the deep front line and the lateral fascia train at the same time. And so for me, that visualization I found has worked for almost everybody, whereas there are other visualizations that I found that haven't been as successful as this one. So that's why I stick with this one.
So are the visualizations for the other valves also circular?
They are circular, yeah.
Thanks.
And this one, sorry, me again. This one, when we're doing the up one, I found that it sort of wanted to go like all through the sinuses and everything. Is that kind of going in the valves? Are they sort of in the middle of your head?
The head valve starts at the hard palate and is above. And then the omohyoid valve does go to the roof of the hard palate. So, and the sinuses are right, you know, above the hard palate in the same bones, sphenoid bones, ethmoid bone. And so it may be that as you were doing the omohyoid valve, right, because it is the base of the hard palate, and then you have the valves 1 and 2 that are the top of the hard palate, that the hard palate does get activated and it does get moving. And so then it's going to activate the head valve as well, especially the valve 2, which is right above the hard palate.
Okay, and is that why you can like move better and see better, and it's sort of all kind of technicolor happens? I don't know this. Better than
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. This is Tatiana. Hi. So I'm just wondering, could you type up the names of these valves? Because I'm not familiar. You just said one of them is something starts with the O, long word.
Yeah, I can't do that. I will. Some of them, it's interesting because the 2 valves in the head don't actually have names. The 3rd valve does have the omohyoid name. The 4th valve is your diaphragm. The 5th valve is your pelvic diaphragm. And then the valves in your feet are the plantar aponeurosis. But I can do that. I can include that in what I send you.
Thank you. It's just because I'm not familiar with that long word, and I'm like, I don't know how to spell that. So thank you.
Yeah, I can do that for you.
And it was interesting for me on the right side in my throat. It was kind of hard to move it there and move it through my right cheek. And that is a spot actually that I've been feeling lately in my throat that's kind of not really sore, but I'm feeling it. And And then also I've noticed that my right thumb was like lifting up as I was trying to pull that string through my cheek. You know, it was doing something weird. So that was interesting. So I think there was like some kind of obstruction there.
Yeah, it's interesting. You start to find all kinds of things.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any questions? Great. Then have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Excellent.
Bye.
Thank you, Alicia. And to everybody, I just wanted to apologize. My name's Sam. I'm one of the guides. The two of us haven't had a chance to meet yet in person, which I'll look forward to in the future because I love what you're doing. And want to thank you on behalf of our Breath Collective and everybody who joined in today for this content and this very dense and amazing theme within breathing. So within that, I'm on the East Coast, and I, for some reason, had 3 o'clock in my head, and I just feel, I feel terrible that I missed the launch of the session. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and apologize on behalf of our Breath Collective and for the entire group. But thank you so much for your work and for everybody who's here pioneering and diving into this exploration. It's so inspiring, and thank you for what you're up to.
You're welcome. See you later, everybody.
Excellent.
Bye.